beginning a new series, Walk in the World with Steady Wisdom and Compassion. So the first message in the series today is a little bit about how to do that, how to have steady wisdom and compassion. I want to begin with a quote that inspired me by the mystic and social activist Vimala Takar. She was part of the land gift movement with Vinoba Bhave, inspired by Gandhiji. And she was also a mystic, a great spiritual teacher as well, although she didn't see herself that way. She wrote, "To be alive is a benediction." You know, to be alive is a blessing. It's a good thing to feel that every day. She said, "To be able to relate to the world through perception and cognition, to relate to it through responses if and when necessary, and to relate to the unmanifest essence through awareness, all of this is so greatly fulfilling. Such a person feels wholeness. Not just one, but both." We all yearn for that innate experience of wholeness and want to live it regularly, 24/7. And one of the first yearnings that brought me to the spiritual path was wanting to know the truth about life, you know, the reality of God. I wanted to know that, and I wanted to know it for myself, the reality of it. I didn't want to just have to rely on what I was told. And that was a great attraction to me about the path of, and the teachings of yoga, that there was this insistence on study, but then verification in your own experience. And I wanted to know how to make wise and not stupid choices. I wanted to know how the experiences of inner peace and happiness and clarity that came to me during moments of spiritual inspiration could become steady instead of fleeting. In other words, I wanted to learn how not to lose it. You know, lose my temper, lose my mind, lose my commitments in the rush of life. And early on in my spiritual journey, I had many experiences of, like, you know, going to a worship service or going to a meditation retreat or seminar, or even going on spiritual pilgrimage and being so inspired that I was absolutely ready to change my life. My heart and my mind were peaceful, you know, settled, clear. I felt filled with a sense of higher purpose and the felt reality of God's omnipresence. It was so clear. And I would then come away with a commitment to be a better person. I declared I would make wiser choices. I would be kinder, more compassionate, less selfish, more generous. Yes, I will do that. I will love God with all of my heart, with all of my mind, with all of my soul, with all of my strength, and my neighbor, including my family, as myself. I would make plans then, you know, to get up an hour earlier, meditate longer and deeper, be more patient with my children, and kinder to absolutely everyone. And I was absolutely sincere with my intentions. And I was also an abject failure in carrying them out regularly. So after a while, I began to be suspicious of that pattern. And I knew that I needed a more effective strategy. So I wouldn't lose my balance, you know, whenever the winds of change came my way. I needed to learn how to walk steadily in the world with spiritual insight, inspiration, clarity, wisdom, compassion. I needed to learn how to have a living faith that would sustain me and not just boosts of, momentary spiritual insights and inspiration. So I had to investigate what was going on. Have you ever wondered that, about yourself, like you had that inspiration and you're all fired up and then boom. I'm thinking, like me, you may have had that happen more than once. And so we have to ask, well, how does that happen? Why does that happen? And what's going on? We're supposed to investigate this. How else do we get off of that wobbly path and get on a steadfast path? So, spiritual practice prepares us to live in the world with wisdom and compassion. And learning how to do that is both an art and a science. So we study the science and we develop insights and clarity about what we are, how the mind works. But then we master the art of living through participating in life every day, with faith and with dedication. So what was going on for me was I had not yet developed the skills to bring the art and the science of spiritual practice together. When we study Vedic teachings, we learn, that we learn what we are as supreme consciousness. We learn about our spiritual essence, the truth of our nature, that we're expressions of this one reality called God. That's our true nature. And we learn that the vehicle that we are expressing through is the body-mind complex. So, given all of that, I was studying, I knew that, but the key insight that I was missing is those parts of us don't always agree. They're not always on the same page. Soul, mind, body may be, and frequently are, at odds with one another. And the mind itself, according to yoga philosophy, has several components that can disagree with one another. Our own mind, which we think of as like one thing, but no, there's a committee in there. And so, it's kind of like, have you ever been to a committee meeting and there's one person who comes in with this insight and inspiration and it's going to move everything forward. And then there's the other person on the committee and then what happens, wherever that inspiration was, it goes out the door. So whenever we make a decision about what we're going to do, and we have an inspiration about what we're going to do, we need to discern which part of us is making that decision. And just having that insight in and of itself is going to help us become steadier on the path. So discerning what part of us is making that decision. Usually, when we're inspired by a higher idea or purpose, it's in yoga what would be called buddhi, our intellect or our faculty of discernment function of the mind that says, yes, soul inspiration, great idea. Let's get up an hour earlier every day and meditate. Absolutely. Then the next morning, when the alarm goes off, another part of our mind remembers it's winter and it's cold. And the body says, no way. Thinking mind, or sense mind, that which reflects our sensory experience, the cold, right, says it's cold, plus we're tired. and we didn't get enough sleep. Now, here's something really fascinating that happens. The buddhi, or the intellect, which was the source of the inspiration, at Sunday satsang or the silent retreat, the buddhi, which was inspired with the light of the soul, gets clouded by this sense-mind experience and then enrolls in the program of the sense-mind. And then buddhi, our faculty of discernment, changes its tune and makes up reasons why it's a better idea to stay in bed. So the committee has changed its tune. Our own mind will then cite current research about how essential it is to have 7 full hours of sleep if you're going to live a long and happy and healthy life. And besides, you can meditate tomorrow. So we can watch this. And if we're aware of it, it's really helpful. Because then we realize it's not that we weren't really inspired or we weren't really sincere or that we have, bad willpower. We just failed to get everybody on board with the plan, so to speak. Swami Sarvapriyananda from the Vedanta Center in New York talked about this challenge, and he referred to the intellect as being like the mahout, like the elephant trainer who guides the elephant with a little stick. Now think about this. And he said, it only works to turn the elephant with a little stick if the elephant wants to go. If the elephant has something else in mind, that little stick is not going to do any good. So the point of this is that we tend to overestimate the power of our discernment, which would be like the mahout with his little stick. And we underestimate the power of the senses and the sense mind. This is an age-old human fallibility. You read the scriptures, you read the writings of the saints, and they were all having the same problem. It doesn't mean that there's no hope for us. It means that we can identify it, see through it, and learn how to be steadfast. So St. Paul, writing in his letters to the Romans, said, I don't understand what I'm doing. For I don't practice what I want to do, but instead I do what I hate. I do what I don't want to do. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 2nd chapter, which we're studying now, in Gita study, Wednesday mornings, you're invited. You can join online, 7:30. Join us for meditation at 6:30 a.m. if you like, and then Gita study. But okay, here in the 2nd chapter, Teachings of Lord Krishna, it says, when the mind runs after the roving senses, it carries away the understanding. That's the buddhi. When the mind runs after the roving senses, it carries away the understanding, or our faculty of discernment, or buddhi, even as a wind carries away a ship on the waters. You read this and think, oh no, we're doomed. But it gets better. For the uncontrolled, there is no intelligence, nor for the uncontrolled is there the power of concentration, and for one without concentration there is no peace, and for the unpeaceful, how can there be happiness? It sounds like it's getting worse, but I promise it will get better. Okay, here we go. Right? Verse 64. For a person of disciplined mind, who moves through the objects of sense with the senses under control and free from attachment and aversion, that one attains purity of spirit. And it gets even better. And in that purity of spirit, there is an end to all sorrow. The intelligence of such a one of pure spirit is soon established in the peace of the self. The intelligence of such a one becomes steady. Steady in the peace of the self. Spirituality as a science is understanding that we are spiritual beings, what the mind is, and how the body and mind operate together, learning how to work with our operating system. And the art of spirituality is putting that knowledge into practice. It's learning how to change the mind, calm the sense mind by reducing selfish desire, and purify the intellect so it can guide our thoughts and our actions consistently in the highest way without wavering. When I go for my morning walk every day, I watch people walk their dogs, or the dogs walk their people, depending, right? And the other day, I saw this beautiful dog walking right next to its owner with no leash, in perfect cadence, right alongside, total undistracted focus. When the owner stopped at the curb and made just the slightest hand gesture, the dog sat and waited, and then with the next hand gesture, they proceeded to cross the street together. And as I was walking, I caught up with them, and when I got closer, I noticed there was a small pouch on the owner's hip. And inside that pouch, of course, a little stash of doggy treats she was judiciously handing out. Walk, treat. Stop, treat. So how do we walk in the world with wisdom and compassion? Treats. We have to train the mind for it. We have to train the mind for it, and we have to practice. And all the religions and spiritual traditions have practices for training the wild elephant of the body-mind or the anxious puppy of the sense-mind. And meditation and prayer are regularly at the top of that list. We have to train every day. We have to practice. If you're a basketball fan like me, you might have seen the Warriors game last week. If you're a Warriors fan, I hope you didn't. But the interesting thing was, it was the Warriors and the Lakers. And LeBron James, you may know, has just won the award for the most points scored ever in the history of the NBA. And what was interesting about that day that they were then going to play the Warriors is the announcer was talking about arriving at the stadium. And he said, what was going on when I arrived here at 3 o'clock this afternoon? He said, LeBron James was here. And do you know what he was doing? He was practicing. He was practicing. So we practice. We have to train. We have to help the mind along so that our discernment is keen and we can proceed through life with steady spiritual insight. There's a saying from the Buddha in the Dhammapada. He said, "My mind used to wander wherever pleasure or desire or lust led it, but now I have it tamed. I guide it as the keeper guides the wild elephant." From the perspective of Kriya Yoga, meditation and prayer not only trains the mind to focus and purifies its restless nature, it has another function, which is key, is critical, and that is that it provides an opening to the direct experience of our essence of being, to the reality of God within us and around us, and repeated experiences of that are the treat. Repeated experiences, tastes of that sweetness, wholeness, fullness of our divine nature, that's the treat that begins to bring the whole being into steadiness. And we realize that we are not walking alone through this world, just trying to make our way through our own efforts, but that one reality, commonly referred to as God, is our constant companion, supporting us and guiding us each step of the way. So may you have a week full of treats. Om.